Hello, everyone, and welcome to Linguistic Center. Today, we'll be delving into the languages French and Italian, exploring their similarities and differences. Both modern Italian and French are derived from Classical Latin, which was spoken around and in Rome. Before the 1st century, Classical Latin began to spread around Italy and Gaul, now known as France. Continuing on, during the 1st to 5th centuries, Romans unified Italy and conquered Gaul, changing the spoken language from Gaulish, a Celtic tongue, to Latin. In the next 4 centuries, Vulgar, aka spoken Latin, changes minimally in Italy, but is highly inflected by the Germanic Frankish, adding new vocabulary and phonetic influence in Gaul. After that period, Italian Latin and Gallo-Romance split into numerous dialects. Then, Old French evolves into Middle French, and the Tuscan dialect solidifies because of newly invented printing. Eventually, both become modern-day Italian and French after centuries of change. To conclude, both languages take extremely high influence from Latin and have evolved into the languages we know today. Now, let's look at the phonology of both languages. As assumed, both Italian and French use the Latin alphabet as we use in English. However, Italian only uses J, K, W, X, and Y in loan words. Both languages have grave and acute accents, but French also uses the trema, circumflex, and cedilla. Their accents have different purposes in each language. In Italian, accents are used to indicate stress, while in French they change the pronunciation of the letter. For example, principi, princes, and principi, principles, are pronounced different, with different stress, and in French, ça is not pronounced ca, but ça because of the cedilla. It is also important to note that if there's no accent in an Italian word, the stress is on the first syllable. Fortunately for Italian speakers, spelling is phonetic and double consonants are always pronounced. However, in French, spelling is the opposite of phonetic. In fact, on average, only 80% of letters are pronounced in French words. In addition, French has complex vowel combinations and a liaison. C and G soften to S and J, depending on the next vowel. H is never pronounced, and double consonants appear in the two, but they are not always enunciated in French. Now, let's look at word order. Both languages use SVO, also known as subject-verb-object. This means word order is similar to English. First, the subject of the sentence, which is the noun or pronoun that does the verb. In Italian, the subject may be omitted. Then, the verb, which is what the subject does. Verbs agree with the subject, but we'll get to that later. The object of the sentence can be direct or indirect. It is the thing that receives the action of the verb. The pizza is a direct object. Then, another part of the sentence is an adjective. This describes either the subject or object. In English, the adjective goes before the object, but in French and Italian, most go after the object. Both languages have masculine and feminine nouns, as opposed to Latin, which included the neuter gender. Articles, like a and the in English, and adjectives both agree with the gender of the noun. In Italian, the most common ending for feminine nouns is a, and for French, it's e. It's important to note that I did not include every single article for Italian or plurals. This is just a basic understanding of genders in both. Alright, now let's find out how to form questions. In Italian, questions are formed by intonation, like in English, which is the rising of the voice tone at the end of the sentence or by adding a question mark. For example, if I say, "Do you speak English?" or "Parli inglese?" which is English and Italian. And in French, one may use intonation as in "Tu parles anglais?" or they can use inversion when one switches the subject and the verb. "Parles-tu anglais?" Another solution is to add "esque" before the subject. "Est-ce que tu parles anglais?" Alright, so to negate basic sentences, in English, we just put the word not after the verb. In Italian, we put the word non, meaning no, to form basic negation, to like say not. For example, sono americano or sono americana, if you're a girl, becomes non sono americano or non sono americana, right? And in French, to form basic negation, you surround the verb with the words ne and pas. So, je suis américain, or je suis américaine, if you're a girl, to je ne suis pas américain, or je ne suis pas américaine. And most of the time in informal speech, you drop the ne. Now, what we have all been waiting for. Verbs and tenses. Both have around 15 to 20 tenses depending on what one counts. I've included the present tense conjugations of the verb to eat in both languages. In Italian, io mangio, which is I eat. Tu mangi. Lui lei mangia. Noi mangiamo. Voi mangiate. Loro mangiano. And then for French, for the verb manger, we have je mange, tu manges, il, elle mange, nous mangeons, vous mangez, il, elle mange. Verbs are conjugated by person, number, time, and time taken. Similar to English, in compound tenses like the present perfect, I have eaten, Italian and French use auxiliary verbs to have and to be. So, if I say I have eaten in English, I is the subject, have is the auxiliary verb, and eaten is called the past participle. In Italian, io is I, which is the subject, o is the auxiliary verb, which is conjugated to have, mangiato is the past participle, and in French, similar, j'ai mangé. Okay, because Italian and French are both Romance languages, a term for tongues which descend from Latin, vocabulary is very similar in many cases. Here are some similar vocabulary and some false friends. First, I'll put the English, then the Italian, then the French. So, animal, animale, animal. Music, musica, musique. Restaurant, ristorante, restaurant. To speak, parlare, parler. Important, importante, important. Also, minute, minuto, minute. Artist, artista, artiste. To eat, mangiare, manger. Problem, problema, problème. Television, televisione, television. And then for some false friends, I'll put the Italian and the French. Camera, which means bedroom, is similar to camera, which means camera in French. Grossa, rude, to gross, fat. Libreria, library, where you rent books. And librairie, which is a bookstore where you buy books. Morbido, which means morbid, is similar to morbide, which means soft. Comodita, which means commodity, is similar to commode, which means dresser. Casuale, random, to casual, casual. Cantina, to cantine, cellar, to cafeteria. Discutere, which means argue, to discute, discuss. Now, I have some questions for you. Speakers of Italian, can you understand French? Speakers of French, can you understand Italian? And I do speak French, and I can understand a bit of Italian, especially when I read it. And also, if you've thought of any other cognates or false friends, please let me know in the comments. Alright, thank you for watching. Bye.